I'm Corbett Wall with DV Auction, here with your feeder flash for Friday, May the 17th, where we seem to have some footing here late this week. We haven't had any footing at all. It's just been a slippery slope here, but we seem to have some footing after 3 weeks of pretty much solid wreck, just straight down, and we kind of knew that our house of cards was going to crumble. We didn't know how bad it was going to be. It's been pretty severe. If you look at when it really started, was about April 23rd, right in there, the first of that week. That was on a Tuesday actually, and since then our RTI was at 147.18. Then it's dropped over $15 just in the last 3 weeks, and that would be on a cash price for an 800-pound steer. Your fat cattle were at 130. Then they've dropped $13 or maybe a little more than that on a live price. Dress price was $208, and it's dropped over $20 just in the last 3 weeks. And I mean, it has been rough. Probably worse on the backgrounder than anybody, I would say. And your backgrounders are not really used to losing that much money. Sometimes they don't make much, but they're losing money. Those that are selling, that bought calves here back in the fall and wintered some cattle, either dry wintered them out somewhere if they had something for them to eat, or shut them up in a growing yard of some type. But I tell you what, they have lost a ton of cash market position there. But why did all this happen? Well, if you look at it, the main reason that it happened is because our funds bailed on us. And we knew going through the winter that your funds, your managed speculative money, were holding all those long positions. Well, everybody and their dog was hedged. Somebody had to be holding the other side. Well, they were holding those long positions, and actually they held them longer than we thought that they probably would. We had a big calf crop there last year. Some people say it's going to be bigger yet this year. I don't see how it could with all the loss of cows and the sell-off that we saw through the rough winter and the flooding and everything. I would think surely we're going to be going down on our size of our calf crop this coming year, or this year here. But I tell you what, we had a lot of cattle. Our feedlots are full. Feedlots are swelling at the seams right now. We've got a lot of cattle going to hit the show list this summer in July and August, and we know that. So there wasn't a whole lot to look forward to, but we kind of artificially held this market up, and it was a lot of that was due to that China African swine fever. And we had high hopes of being able to cash in on that, and that kind of kept those funds hanging on to those long positions a little bit longer, and maybe even rolling them over and holding on a little bit longer. And then also the market was kind of holding because of the rough winter and the flooding that they had in Nebraska and Iowa and places, and they just kind of kept holding that market on, and it didn't start bleeding off until all of a sudden they just couldn't hold out any longer. And I think maybe even that speculative money misjudged the Packers' efforts to keep this market under wraps. But finally, right there, about the last part of April 23rd through that week, then they finally just started dumping. And as they dumped those long positions, and they probably didn't make out too good on most of their positions there either. But I mean, this market just started getting away from us faster than we could try to gather it back up, and lost a ton of cash market position. Of course, lost a whole lot on the board too. A coincidence in there is about the same time the market started breaking was whenever RCAF, the announcement come out that they were suing, had a class action suit, antitrust suit against the 4 big packers with RCAF and a few of their member feeders there. And is that just a coincidence, or is that a big retaliatory action there? I don't know. But it was a big coincidence. We also saw that the fake meat really hit the media about then too. That's when they were really starting to talk about Beyond Meats having an IPO offering, and since it's happened, and it's been going gangbusters ever since, hit an all-time record high, which it's only a couple of weeks old, but hit the highest price it's seen here on Thursday. And all that was kind of a coincidence, yeah, maybe, but it works on things. And this fake meat deal, I probably preach about it too much, but I can't underestimate how big I think it is on this industry. And a lot of your people that are in that managed fund money, they're not deaf to listen to these techie people, this new generation wanting to get on something like this fake meat. They see all the excitement it's generating. It was all over Fox Business News late this week, and people are excited about that thing. It's the newest thing out there. Do I think it's a fad? Yeah, I do. But how much of our market share do we want to lose to your fake meat in the meantime while people are still excited about it? I mentioned on a previous visit that your fake dairy products have taken 13% of your milk market. I really don't think we want to give up that big of a piece of our beef pie. We've got to get out there. We've got to educate. We've got to promote our product, how safe it is, how healthy it is. That you can fill your belly maybe with or put it in between two pieces of bun there and slap some vegetables and condiments on it and choke it down. I'm not going to do it, but evidently some people do it. But in the long run, you need those enzymes, amino acids, the things that the real meat has in it that is healthy, what keeps you going, and all the protein that it has. And you don't necessarily need all the sodium that the fake meat product has. But let's go on and talk about how the board kind of saw some footing here late in the week. Look at June live cattle futures up 80 cents at 110.47. We like to see it stay on the top side of that 110. August was up 97 cents at 107.95. And as you go out front into our late in the year live cattle contracts and early next year, they were all up more than that and all up over $1. But you look at May feeder cattle, it was off. And that is all about how full these feedlots are right now. There's no more places to put these cattle unless you've got some that are light enough and have a condition that you can turn them out. And you might turn some big cattle out weighing, in the sevens, nearly 800 pounds. If you can just keep putting some weight on them out there. But there's no place in the feed yard to put them, and we know that we've got a lot of loss on some of these heavy numbers of market-ready cattle that we'll have going into the first part of the summer. But if we continue to keep marketing like we have, even though they've been marketing at a loss, we're still current. We don't have a backlog of cattle even on this down market. So that's one thing you can say about these fat cattle sellers. They have been marketing right along, and the pace that they're slaughtering these things, if they keep doing that, and we're going to get into some more consumer demand as we get into some of these summer holidays, we can just keep clicking right along, and then as we get towards the middle of the summer, we'll be over the hump, and then we can start seeing some gain. But on your May feeder cattle, it's hard to give much more than the price is for those. Down $1.70 on Thursday, ending at 134.22, and that's still kind of a premium to what the cash market is on an 800-pound steer on the average through the middle 12 states there. They just won't quite bring that. August feeder cattle was up $1.05, and they were up on from there, but August was up $1.05 at 143.32. So some footing, not gangbusters, but some decent footing where you can walk out on the ice and hope you're not going to fall through. Let's look at your fat cattle trade through Wednesday. We had 26,000 head, 21,800 head just on Wednesday. So pretty decent move on Wednesday, but they've got a lot of cattle to market here on Friday. Be interesting to see where they do sell those. It should be at least where they sold cattle earlier in the week, if not a little bit better, just from that positive note that we saw on Thursday. But through Wednesday, your live price range from 115 to 119 with a weighted average in your 5-area feeding region at 116.43. and a dressed price that ranged from 183 to 189, and in your 5 areas, the weighted average dressed steer price was 186.70. Both of those are quite a bit lower. Thursday did see a little bit more trade in the northern plains and a little bit more trade in the southern plains. But in Iowa, we saw about 4,200 head confirmed on Thursday, but it wasn't a big trading day, just a little bit more trade. And it ranged from 116 to 118 in Iowa and 185 to 186. In Nebraska, they sold several cattle there, 18,000 head confirmed in Nebraska on Thursday, so there'll be some more once they start cleaning those up. 117 is the live price, and they hadn't sold many cattle in Nebraska, so that's where the bulk of your sales in Nebraska are going to be at, and that's lower. And your dress trade at 184 to 186. Now Kansas, they had already established their trade at 117, in Texas also, but they sold more cattle, about 3,000 head in Kansas, which is significant after they've traded the bulk of their sales. And Texas about 600, but when you only sell less than 5,000 all week, 600 is quite a few in Texas. But from 114 to 117, now what's happened to that 117? Even though we saw some footing on Thursday, and there were several at 114 in Kansas, and you think, oh no, why would they do such a thing? Well, a lot of those sales are for after Memorial Day. And we know we're going to lose some more ground here as we get closer into the summer. And a lot of that may have been before the board closed on that positive side. So we should see, we're going to see some more trade in both the southern plains and the northern plains, especially the northern plains on Friday here. And we should be able to get back at least to that 117 and maybe a touch better than that in the northern plains for your Friday sales, because of the way they're harvesting these things, they're going to have to trade several more cattle. But you look at your box beef cutout values. On Thursday afternoon, choice cuts at $219.56, that was off just 1 penny. And select cuts at $207.88, off 16 cents. Both of those quotes late here this week are about $2 to $4 lower than the bulk of the trade last week, so they have lost some more ground, but not as much as they lost from the previous week to last week. Your slaughter, pretty good clip, 484,000. That's good, healthy harvest there. That's 3,000 more than last week's biggest kill of the year, and 5,000 more than the same time a year ago. Let's talk about your feeder cattle markets. Real-time index on Cattle Market Central late on Thursday, 132.06, up 3 cents. We don't say that very often anymore, but was actually better trade on your 7-day moving average. Your quote was a little bit stronger than what it was late Wednesday, and had some pretty good sales on Thursday. But also your weight was up. Your average from the 7 to 899 pound steers was up to 813, so you could tack a little bit more onto that. But look at some of your big sales on Thursday. Pratt, Kansas, winter livestock there at 6,400 head. They're coming off of that graze out week, guys. It's starting to get tough, and a lot of them are pulling those off of there. And so we're seeing some marketings there. Maybe they wouldn't like to sell them, but they got no other place to go with them. So they got to sell them somewhere, and they're bringing them into the sales. Didn't see a lot of direct trade the last 2 or 3 weeks coming off that graze out wheat because the market was so depressed. When the market's breaking or when the market's spiking, when I've said it 1,000 times, when the market's really, really good or they believe it's really bad, they're taking them to the sale. Feeder steers in Pratt, Kansas steady to $2 higher. Pratt's had a couple of really rough weeks here, getting the full brunt of the down market, but back on the top side or the upside on Thursday. Feeder steers steady to $2 higher, except the 850 to 950 pound steers, and then they were lower yet, $3 to $5 more than they lost last week, and then had some pretty steep losses the last 2 weeks there. But feeder heifers, mostly $2 to $3 higher. So that's a good deal, because we haven't been saying higher in a cash feeder auction for quite a while. Farmers and Ranchers Livestock Auction in Salina, Kansas. Almost 3,000 head there, steady to $3 higher. Spots $4 higher on some of your lighter weight feeder cattle or heavier calves, stocker weight cattle there. And we've got those big grazing regions up in that country fully stocked, and those cattle will be out here for a few months now, putting that cheap gain on. But we've got smaller patches of grass, other areas. We've got weekend warriors, some of your smaller producers, farmers that are going to be busy in the field, but they've got some grass, things like that. Got some places to stock, and those light calves are going to be good as we come on through the spring here. But look at your Cattle Market Central market report out of Salina, and look at your best tested weights up there in your heavier steers. And these are the ones that they thought didn't trade quite as good. But actually, if you look at just the pure weighted average weights and prices there, 496 head of steers in the 8-weight category, averaged 846 at 132.04. 8-weight steers average 132. You may not realize how much this market's fallen, but that's the market, guys. And actually, it was up $4.50 from the weighted average the previous week, but they had a real light run in Salina a week ago because of all the heavy rains that come through. 551 head of 9-weight steers averaged 921 at 126.61, and that was up $5 from the few 9-weights that they had a week ago. Look at Mitchell, South Dakota. They had about 3,000 head there. A lot of big backgrounded feeders there. Feeder steers steady to $2 lower, and feeder heifers steady to 5 lower, spots 8 lower. But Mitchell hadn't got the full brunt of the losses there because they had a light run a week ago also, because it was also storming and wet up in that country. But let's talk about your best quote of the day. Burlington Livestock Exchange in Colorado there, 62 head of 661 pound steers bring $161.50 for the foothills of the Rockies. And that's your feeder flash for Friday.